Hello everyone, who's in on watching. This is the First Last Podcast, episode 2. I am Singer Wenkosi Namalu, but for sure you can call me Singer. As I said the first time, it's a long name. And yeah, well, I'm just gonna be talking about what I tended to anyways, which is financial stuff. Financial stuff regarding this country. Yeah, you know, so in the first episode, there was a thing I mentioned about it's about there being 100 megawatts cap lift for private companies to actually go make their own power now, right, in the country. It used to be 1 megawatt, now it's 100 megawatts, which essentially can power around about 10,000 homes, yeah, around about there, and that seems to have been a positive change because of the fact that it's a municipality, which is the one I am around at. They came out with a proposal to actually construct a 400 megawatts a power plant, right? And this is basically a way to attempt to go and have its own power grid away from Eskom, right? Because well, Eskom, yeah, we all understand there's a high level issue of corruption and stuff. So with them, they're trying to have their own way to go sustain their own power, right? It's a proposal that came out like I want to say June 29th, somewhere there. I mean, that's when I read the article. It was on a few articles I read. It was on Biz News and also on IOL .com .coza. Yeah, yeah, and that seems to be indicating that there's some sort of shift happening in terms of people wanting to slowly go and generate their own power, right? Um, Also, same case for Johannesburg. The city of Johannesburg also came out with their own proposal of, from what I remember, they are going to make a, they're planning on making a 150 a megawatt solar plant to go construct a 50 megawatt a rooftop panels, yeah, uh, solar panels, obviously, and they're also gonna make a gas-fired plant. As for how much power that's supposed to generate, I'm not quite sure about that, but they also planning on making it to be a a those planning to make those power plants to be something of a way to try and have their own power, or to use the private sector to actually go and buy the energy from and stuff. Yeah, yeah. Which again is actually it's showing to me at least that there's definitely an indication that this is probably going to happen more in the future. There's probably going to be more places as to where they're going to try and get power from the private sector, since the public sector has been not a great job. If there's a way to summarize that, yeah, yeah. It's been pretty interesting to read because it kind of seems to me that, well, of course, with the world trying to use as little as carbon emission as possible, this is kind of showing to me that they, in terms of where the world is going, and also the fact this country seems to also be trying to go to that direction, or attempting to anyways. I mean, these are only proposals. These aren't. There haven't been any plans as of yet. Yeah, but yeah, this is definitely showing that that the private sector in this country is gonna boom, particularly with uh, with the energy sector. Yeah, definitely gonna be huge, most definitely. Because of course, once you open it, because like once you open it like a door like this, it doesn't close. It just doesn't close. Like it, even if it does like slow down, it still won't stop. Definitely won't. Yeah, so I would definitely say that's a huge huge turn of events, if I can say, because it was pretty quick. The fact that these proposals actually came out quite recently. Still hot. It's hot water, by the way. I'm a fan of that. But yeah, yeah. So that's just a bit of information from the previous episode. Another thing I wanted to talk about was, well, I've been actually looking up this interesting, what to call it, story, not story because it's fictional, but more of a discovery that I made. I'll start off by actually watching a podcast of the Biz News channel. I would recommend people to go watch it on YouTube. Yeah, there was a there was a there was a clip that came out from them with someone talking about the fact that the property market in this country has been going down horribly. Well, it is and will continue to, right? From I remember the guy's name, if I'm not mistaken, was Magnus Haystack. Yeah, he was explaining that in the property market of this country, in terms of its real value, which is basically if you take the what call like its value in rands, and then if you convert it into dollars, and then if you look at it from a 10-year plus minus 10-year um, perspective, it's actually be going down, right? Because of the fact that while there was an exponential increase in terms of, well, gap in terms of the value from the dollar to the rand, right? And so because of that, almost all assets in this country have been devalued tremendously because of the increasing value that the dollar has compared to the rand, right? And with that, it's also been a case of that the rates and taxes regarding property have actually been increasing beyond inflation for the past 10 years, right? And that has and with that, of course like the value not even catching up to inflation because of the increasing um the actual increase in value from rand to dollar, right? Because of that, the value of properties haven't been increasing as such, and whereas the actual expenses, I can say that the rate and taxes have been increasing tremendously throughout the past 10 years. With that, it's kind of like a thing of there's a if you go and calculate the actual value of the property in terms of real value, which is $2, because that's the standard. That's like the standard currency for now, anyways. Not for the world, it's actually been devalued. Many of them have been devalued. Yeah, many of them, and that is like that's pretty interesting to me to actually think about because I didn't really consider like the implications of the rand to dollar gap being so big in terms of their values, right? I didn't really think about what that actually implied for the assets of this country, Never really considered it. And which it does, well, to me, it makes sense, anyways, yeah. So I have to look into that. That was a pretty big discovery for me. Yeah, yeah, pretty big. This guy was also talking about the fact that, well, with the increase of the rates and annual taxes is because, well, many municipalities here they aren't necessarily doing the greatest of jobs. Not necessarily, yeah. It's been more of like a rocky road in terms of them actually um, being able to provide the services at the cost that they have been increasing at the cost at which they've been increasing what to say the cost at which they've been increasing Basically, I'll just say that the cost at which they've had the rates and tax actually go up to, yeah, it's it, it's definitely something to think about in terms of whether or not investing in property is even a good idea, potentially, right? Because it was also a guy that I was reading up on. Pete Viljoen, if I'm saying his name correctly, he is a fund manager at a place called Counterpoint. He wasn't mainly talking about this, but he does bring up the point that investing in the residential property in this country doesn't really make sense because of the fact that the costs are too high, and also that well, this is what Magnus said. Um, he said that um, for someone who wants to be a property owner and to rent out the actual property, the rental you get, the actual income you get, most of that will always be going to the actual expenses with the rate and taxes, and on top of that, you also have to go and have to, excuse me, have to go like and maintain your actual home, right? It's not home, but actual a property itself, with there always being a pipe leak, so on and so forth. There's just like those kind of expenses and stuff. It's in terms of how much you get back, in terms of ROI. It has been going down as the expenses have been going up. And then back to what was like with Pete was saying, he was saying that from a financial standpoint, it doesn't make sense to invest. He himself apparently doesn't even own. He doesn't even own residential property. He rents. Yeah. So I mean, it has only been like two people that I read up actually saying this, but I haven't been hearing this much on the mainstream business news in this country. So that's pretty interesting for me to actually go look into. I definitely have to look into that more because because I've been considering actually going into property, right? Well, not now because I'm still a student at DUT, but I have been considering actually looking into it because of the benefits there are to land, but then with there being such not only statements but statements that are backed up by facts in terms of it's not worth in actually owning property here because of the landscape in terms of how corruption seems to actually play a part in terms of your actual investments. That definitely will make me reconsider it, at least for now, anyways. Yeah, at least for now. So it would seem as though that it would be best, according to them, anyways, to actually rent in this country, not own any land. Uh, but then, of course, they also have been um, some other sites I've been reading up on, which actually go against that because there's this quote that I remember from Charlie Munger saying that you should know your counter argument better than your argument, right? So whatever you are pro or what you are for, you should understand what is what should I say, like what are the points that go against that, and to understand those, to know if what you actually really and if you to know as what you really for actually does have some validity to it. Yeah. And so with the site that actually offers home loans, they actually did a they do market research. I forgot the name of the website. Yeah, but I'll definitely post it on Instagram and LinkedIn when I get the chance, and Twitter as well. Um, but with that, with my links, you can find that on my YouTube page on the About section. Yeah, yeah. But with regards to that, with that, with the website, I was saying that because of home prices are actually steadily going down, it's becoming more affordable for people to actually go and buy into, right? And with Pete Viljoen saying that it will make more sense to go and own land if you aren't seeking to become a landlord, but more of someone who just wants to own their own home. That would make more sense in terms of a feeling of security point of view, right? So it would seem as though that, well, for now anyway, is that going into property is only best in terms of you want to actually just want to own your own home. Yeah, not to actually be a landlord. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting, I must say. I mean, like with the whole thing of land being so big in this country, I wouldn't, I would definitely have actually considered that it wouldn't have been a good idea to go with right now, especially with that whole exchange rate of the rand to dollar being so big, which then ties against the next thing, which is that in general the stock market of this country is actually pretty. It's not the best place to actually put your money into. For what I'm reading up, because of the whole thing of the rand to dollar exchange rate being having an exponential increase in value. Um, if you there have been some stats done, and if you look into the if you will if you go into look into the JSC All Share Index, and then if you compare it to the S&P 500, like over the past 10 years, in terms of which one was like a better place to go and actually put your money into, there's no comparison. From what I remember, the JSE All Share Index has only been performing at about 12% in total for the past 10 years. Not even annually, as in total. Like from 2010 to about 2020, 2021 has been, of course, been recovering well because of the whole drop in prices because of COVID and also with the recovery and stuff. But of course, that's only relative. It's only relative to how things were pre-COVID, not in terms of how they are over a long-term point of view. Yeah, but with the S&P, it was doing exceptionally better. Number-wise, I can't really recall, but I definitely do remember that they were actually um, they were actually doing much better. And of course with S&P 500, since it is a way to go and buy into America in a sense, I can see why it would be a place to actually go put your money into because well with I mean like with America, ever since it was declared as a place to as actual country in 1776, it's it's just been doing remarkably well. I mean the market's there regardless of which time period you look into. Even if you look past the Great Depression over there, it's like consistently over time they've just always been doing better. Like there may have been drops, but there's never been a complete reversal in terms of their progress. Like in terms of like market wise, in terms of its value, how the country operates and stuff. Which is why I could understand it be a place as to where would be why it would be considered a superpower. Of course, not only because of that, but that will definitely be a factor. Yeah, the system allows um allows anybody with the right mindset, with the with the ability to go and get the best, like most valuable skills, to always have an opportunity to go and make something of themselves, and depending on how well they do it, it will always contribute back to the actual market in terms of its value growing over time. And of course, that system like seems to be working regardless of the politics over there. And unfortunately, this country doesn't really seem to be the case because, well, the politics and our market seems to be closely related in terms of how well they perform and stuff, right? Um, well, not necessarily because even though as hectic as things are becoming with the whole Zuma issue, um, companies so far this year have been recovering pretty well. I mean, if you don't like look at it from a rand dollar point of view, but if you look at it in terms of just how the country has been recovering on its own, it's been doing pretty well. Lots of strong reports coming out from like various companies. I know that Capitec's been doing pretty well. Yeah, but then again, that's the whole point of um, with the whole point of the whole thing of like the asset of like the asset classes in this country doing pretty badly comparatively in terms of where else you could have put your money into. Uh, According to this guy, Magnus Haystack, he's been saying stuff like that while many many South Africans can't really actually go ahead and actually can't take that advantage because many of them actually have their money usually in they usually make their money in RAs, retirement annuities, in pension funds and stuff like that. And that has a 30%. And many of them have like a Regulation 28, Reg 28 rule saying that only 30% of your funds can actually be onto offshore investments, international investments and stuff. Yeah. And so with that, there haven't been many actually good performing RAs and pension funds actually. Yeah, like there was this thing that he said that one of Old Mutual's funds have only been returning 1.6% annually for the past 5 years. I was like, whoa. And the people who actually look into that, I mean, that does really speak into the lack of financial education for people to either A, look into it and think it's a good idea to buy or to put their money in such, or B, to to not even be aware of what the return is, but just put in some to just go put the money in just a fund, just to say that they have an investment. Yeah, there definitely needs to be more like edu more education, more awareness about it. But there seems to be a growing idea of it in this country, at least, like in terms of it being something that's more accepted to actually talk about. Slowly though. Of course, with many people actually being scared to talk about money because such a uh, what to call it, such a topic for many people because because money it hasn't really been good for everyone, right? You, they haven't been using it right because a they don't know how to, and of course b because like expenses of stuff have always been harassing people, if I can say that's the word. Actually, I just tasted a bit nice, but yeah, yeah. The all of this is just, I must say, pretty useful to know. I would definitely say for anybody who actually wishes to ensure that their money is being placed in areas that will give them the best return and also the most sustainable returns. Yeah. Yeah. And also, like recently, I also read up this article in terms of people actually leaving more. There are there many people who are actually leaving to Mauritius because Mauritius they had that this rule saying that um, if you could only come in you could only go and live in the country if you actually owned like $500,000 worth of land for property, right? But now it's dropped to about 375K, and because of that, like many people actually leaving this country, according to Safe Property Group. Not as in like many, but there's a growing number of our people actually leaving there because of a like the tax benefits there, b with the fact that Mauritius is known to be like a property hotspot there. Yeah, yeah. Which is which seems to be more. Huh. I read that article like literally last night. Still have to look into that into even more, but definitely seems to be more of a. I don't know if it's a growing concern, but then I wouldn't really necessarily be too worried about that since, well, unfortunately, many of us can't really afford to do that, but the wealthiest of us have definitely decided to try and step into that direction. Yeah, and also with that whole thing of with the whole thing of like the value of the rand dollar, many of our millionaires aren't really millionaires anymore in USD terms. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like with the fact that if you take like the value of let's say like obviously like a property that used to be pretty high in terms of like USD in terms of like USD value, and then over the past 10 years has been dropped tremendously because of that whole real return rate actually being pretty low with the whole exchange rates and stuff, which is actually from what I have been reading into uh, the main way that people have actually been would actually go accumulate wealth, yeah, through land. And with that, many millionaires aren't really millionaires anymore. Yeah, pretty unfortunate. But I would definitely say it's something to be of a lesson in terms of more like being a millionaire shouldn't really mean a lot. Just like the number itself seems big, but not not really, man. I mean, even being a millionaire in America isn't enough to actually get you into comfortable retirement. Well, depending on how much of those millions are, but it's like 1 million USD is not enough. It's enough in this country, but not but not in America, right? And of course, probably won't be enough soon here even because that's about like 14, 15 million rand. Definitely won't be enough soon. I wouldn't think so, anyways. Yeah. But yeah, the main thing I was to talk about, yeah, was the whole property and land thing. I mean that those two, well, not necessarily the property, but because of the whole thing on the eye that I actually discovered, the whole thing of like many of our asset classes here are actually have actually been performing worse than actually expected, and well than I expected, and also with the fact that energy seems to be um, a a rumbling um, seems to be a market that's now rumbling in our country, in the private sector particularly. Yeah. Kind of ironic that the private sector has is able to disclose more of the information, seems to be more smoothly operated than the public sector. Pretty interesting. But of course, there are some that, of course, ugh, yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, though, that's all I want to talk about today. Thank you for anyone who's watching, and I will I will talk more next week. Well, not next week. That's too far away. But I'll definitely try and post more often. Yeah, yeah. Still starting out, so time wise, still looking into how things are going. But thank you all. Peace.